Welcome to the beta test video, 2019 beta video. What we're going to do is talk a little bit about the installation information again, some of the system changes, enhancements at a high level. We'll just look at the web page, the what's new, and then we'll demonstrate some of these new features. There's one in particular related to the 7-day forecast that's going to get 80–90% of the attention. Okay, let's go over the installation instructions. This is a repeat of last year a bit. This is the email we are sending out with this. First thing, this is beta testing. You may not be able to upgrade this to the final release, so do not affect your production system if you have one. Businesses obviously do, private individuals maybe not as much. There's a download link. You would have probably seen it by now. To install, just the usual, download and execute the program, follow the prompts. And same as last year, there's a lot of data verification that goes on, so it may take a little while for the install to kick off. If you're doing an update install, same as last year, we'll uninstall the prior version of Hurrtrak and save all of the databases, we hope. There are the install keys for the different versions, and Hurrtrak Online user name and password is same as last year, beta 1107. We did keep the 2018 database, and we included a couple test storms: Michael 5, meaning advisory 5, Florence 32. Florence 32 is going to be a good one for the 7-day forecast testing. And this doesn't apply anymore. As far as keeping in mind, we're going to send you this video. You actually have the video. So, a couple points. Do not replace your production system. Any type of special beta reminders that come up during the install, ignore those. I know about them. It's a reminder for me. If you have time, do installs of different versions. You have the keys I've provided. Obviously, let me know if you have any errors. And if you can, upgrade the 2018, if possible, 2017 versions to 2019. It'd be nice to see that work in the field. And if you can, do some installs on some systems that don't have Hurrtrak yet. After you get it started, make sure you do go into the user options and turn on the option to retrieve Eastern and Central Pacific and Western Pacific data, so that if we have these storms, which right now we only have one that's getting ready to dissipate, you'll be able to see those storms and perhaps exercise some functions on those. As usual, test old features and new ones. Help files have not yet been updated, and we've put a link to the What's New page you're going to see here in a second, and also the 7-day forecast video we did that's on one of the What's New pages. As usual, keep me informed. We're going to start shipping probably at the end of the month, early May or late April. And if there are any problems, we obviously want to address those soon. Okay, let's look at some of the enhancements, and we won't dwell on a couple of these because we've discussed them in the past, but once again, the daily video discussion is available to all folks that keep their Hurrtrak system up to date with the current version. Also Storm Info customers, and we will continue doing that in 2019. So this is not a code change to the program and nothing you need to test really. We're doing daily videos now that we send information on via the website. In any case, so let's go down to the most important one, which is the 7-day forecast support. And we're probably going to get some questions on this about why we're doing it, but basically we're doing this because we want to be ahead of the curve. At some point, Hurricane Center is going to be releasing, I believe, 6- and 7-day forecast. And when they do, the system will be ready to handle that. So this is actually the largest change to the software because it impacted so many areas within the software. That's where I'd like you to spend most of your testing time. And we will show more details on that here in a minute. Next is a precipitation report. I guess I could have clicked on the 7-day forecast, but you're going to see what it is. Precipitation report. We'll show you how to generate that. It's real simple. Real quickly, the format is by location group. You can show precipitation out through 7 days. Extended forecast track depiction, just a usability type thing where you can show different colors for prior forecast tracks. Other user interface improvements, copy and paste capabilities. These are real simple, but had several requests to make the ability to copy and then paste, and I need to change that from pass to paste so they can put it into other documents. Shapefile export it. We edit capability there with the rainfall forecast. Max wind thematic, we added some more information there. It's probably hard to see, but some timing data, when the max winds are going to occur. Storm surge improvements, just putting in the latest storm surge data. There's nothing we really need to demonstrate there. And some folks wanted to make it easier to animate with decision arcs or range rings. So we came up with a little easier way to do that. And then some miscellaneous other internal enhancements that you don't really need to be concerned with, similar to last year, where we're changing some areas to keep up with security and more consistent methodologies. So at this point, I'd like to insert the 7-day forecast video that we have on the website into this video, and that runs for about 6-7 minutes, and then we'll get into demonstrating the rest of these features. One of the new features we're adding this year is a look towards the future with a incorporation of a 7-day forecast capability for tropical storms and hurricanes. This is something the Hurricane Center has been looking at. Matter of fact, they've been issuing internal 7-day forecast since 2018, and they're going to continue that in 2019. And they're doing this to measure how accurate they can be and determine when to start making this part of the public product, which we expect will occur probably within the next 2 years. So in a nutshell, Hurrtrak is now 7-day ready. So if the Hurricane Center decided to start issuing 7-day forecasts next year or even this year, which they won't, then the system will be able to handle that. You'll be able to utilize that information. But also, we are allowing users this year to enter the extended forecast positions for day 6 and day 7 within this release. Of course, this is done at your own risk, but can provide valuable planning information. Let's see how this is done. Here's Hurricane Florence when it was positioned out in the Atlantic, and the 5-day forecast extends to this position. Of course, this is not giving any of the coastal areas any preparation information as far as potential wind speeds and impact further than 5 days out. So there are two options. First option is to use a tool, and everyone has this, to do a what-if analysis, set up what-if scenario. When you do that and you activate it, you can then bring up a screen that shows all of the positions, forecast positions for the storms out through 5 days. Then you can enter what you think the day 6 and day 7 position and wind speed will be. You may get this information from your own private meteorologist or perhaps some of the more reliable forecast models. So we're going to enter some numbers here just so we can show you how this works. We're going to say that it moves to 32 north and minus 75 west on the same trajectory, and we're going to keep the same wind speed at 110 knots. For day 6 and day 7, we're going to keep it on the same track to make this simple and keep the same wind speed. When you do this and you hit OK, you're going to get a little warning with a red background here letting you know you're in a what-if scenario. Now, what-if scenario or what-if capabilities, we still see a 5-day forecast. However, several things have happened under the covers. You can plot the what-if forecast, so you can now see this track taking it in around Myrtle Beach or so, keeping the same wind speed, 125 miles per hour, although it says 127, it's just a rounding issue. But you can also at this point do other graphics, such as, for example, the wind band graph, and we sped that up for you. You can also do animations, for example. We'll come back here and we'll go ahead and pick animation. We sped this up also so you didn't have to wait for it, but it also affects animations. Let's pause that. But more importantly, in addition to the graphics, let me go back to that chart, you can run impact reports. So for example, let's run a report for a set of locations, and using that 7-day forecast, it's showing you what the potential wind speeds are and the timings, in this case for the hardest hit areas of Myrtle Beach, Cape Fear, Wilmington, Charleston, etc., which you would not be able to do if you just used the 5-day forecast. Now let me repeat, this is all done at the user's risk. I suggest at this point in time, until the Hurricane Center, or even after the Hurricane Center starts issuing 7-day forecasts, that these extended periods should really just be used for general planning and perhaps not specific actions. That's going to be up to each independent user on how they use this data. Okay, so now I've reset the system. I'm going to show you the second way to enter a forecast. Before we use the what-if capabilities under Tools, now we're just going to edit the actual forecast data. So you can go Edit Official Forecast, and in this case it's Advisory 32. We're going to work our way down to there because we're using post-storm analysis since Florence's position was further along. So we're going to enter into the actual data. I'm going to put the same data in so there's no confusion. Actually, you can even strengthen the storm a little bit if you want. We'll do that. And minus 80, and I'm not going to strengthen it there. Matter of fact, I should have weakened it a bit because it had moved inland. So that's what we'll do. And we're going to edit that forecast. So now when we go to the current position and we show the forecast track, now we're showing that track all the way in. Same as before, you can now run your reports. We'll run it for the same set of locations. The data will be very similar, if not exact, to what we saw before using the other method. And you can run your animations, your wind bands, everything else. The difference is this data remains more permanent as opposed to the what-if data, the what-if forecast, which will be erased every time you close the program and restart it. And just to show you a few more examples, here's the county report. And if you want to use a thematic, again, this is using extended 7-day forecast data. So let me summarize or finalize or conclude by saying it's very key that you understand that this 6-day, 7-day forecast that you may be entering should not be used for anything more than a general planning purpose at this time until the Hurricane Center starts issuing the official Day 6 and Day 7 forecast, perhaps next year or the year after. So once again, this is an enhancement with a look towards the future, as well as for the folks who are able to also utilize that information today. All right, let's do some demonstration here. First, when you open up the system for the first time, there'll be an empty database. Just a reminder, go into your user preferences. You can either select Tools User Preferences or pick the little yellow man here. I guess that's looks like Donald Trump. And go to Hurrtrak Online, Automatic Polling, and select the Eastern, Central Pacific, and the Western, And you can leave that indicator there. Save those changes, and now you'll get the Indian Ocean and anything else that forms in the Pacific. Okay, so even though we just saw information on the 7-day forecast, and by the way, that video, I didn't realize the background music was going to be so loud, so hopefully you manage that. I'm not going to put any background music on these videos. In any case, we're going to switch to the 2018 database. You may not see the actual selection. We'll make it the default so that when we come back in, it'll be there. But for the 7-day forecast, Florence is a good one, and we created a Florence 34. Hopefully we don't see anything blow up here, but that desktop rebuild drives me a little crazy. I'm going to undo that because it does drive me a little nuts. It might save time for other people though. In any case, there's the forecast for Florence, and we showed a couple methods on how you can extend the forecast. Let's do the method where we do what-if scenario. This one's a little more dangerous. You're going to come down and select the override. And by the way, that's new also. It used to just be overriding the speed of the storm. Now you can override the position. So like we did in the video, I'm going to take this out to 32.5 north, if this will take my key entry. It's interesting. Apparently it's only taking whole numbers. I'm going to have to check that out. There's a first bug. Yeah, interesting. Anyhow, so I'm going to keep the same speed for that location. And there was one other thing I want to make sure you have it turned on. Then we're going to 35 and minus 80. And it's inland now. I'm going to go down to 70 miles or 70 knots. And when I hit OK, goes through all that. And remember, if you've used this before, the what if scenario doesn't just show up. You need to come up top and go plot what if forecast. There it is. Maybe we'll zoom in a little bit. And then we'll run a report. This small map location group is fine. And there's that report similar to the video you just saw. Now you can do the same thing. Well, let's go in here and undo it. So now we no longer have a what if forecast. Again, if we wanted to edit the actual forecast, just go into edit official forecast, and then you can put your data in here. In this case, it will accept a point number. And by the way, if you see that bug, it's because we've already shipped this version or beta out to you, and that'll be fixed in the next one where the what if forecast does not allow point numbers, which is interesting. So I've changed the official forecast. You're not going to get any flashing red signs or anything, but when you show the official forecast, it'll show that. I'm a little hesitant to tell folks to use the official forecast method because it's not an official forecast. But they need to manage that themselves. The what if forecast is a little safer, at least, because it says what if forecast on all the reports. The other thing I want to point out, and this is by default, if you go to the user options, you want to make sure this estimate 48, 72, 96, 120, that needs to be changed to include through 168 hour forecast wind fields, and make sure that's checked. So there you go. I found 2 bugs already, so don't report those. All right, let's look at the precipitation report. And about, like I said, the 72-hour forecast features, exercise the heck out of that. Run county reports, do unnatural things, try to break that. And I'm sure there's probably some other bugs in there, but I like to find them out now, not later. Precipitation report, we'll just use the icons. Up here is the old precipitation graphic. It looks like this, and we've also changed the colors on that to make it a little more dynamic. But now you can also run reports by using the QPF report. I guess I should make that a friendlier name, but for now that's what it is. And then you can pick your location group. I like using counties because there's over 3,000 of them, and so we're going to have a longer report. And this shows the forecast rainfall. It's being sorted by day 1 through 7, but you can sort it by day 1. In this case, we have Florida showing up. Day 2, North Carolina. Day 3, Iowa sorts day 1 through 3, 1 through 5. Mississippi wins, and 1 through 7, California comes back in. And you can obviously print these reports, email these reports, anything you want. So this is kind of nice. You can use this year-round. The top row functions have nothing, well, I shouldn't say nothing, but do not necessarily, in this case, the precipitation reports don't need a storm to be present in order to be active. So you can have an empty database and still use those precipitation forecast functions. As far as this enhanced forecast track depiction, let's go back to the user options. And I believe it's somewhere under plotting. There is a color for prior tracks. And it's on tab 2 or page 2. And it's right here, prior forecast. I can't ever read that. It's a lousy color. Prior forecast. And we'll change the color so I can read it. Older forecast. All right. And if you reset the defaults, you still can't read it, but that's what it says. So let's save those changes. And let's go and we'll pick, just for grins, Michael 5. There's the forecast track. We'll zoom in a bit. And if we go up and pick the option where you can show earlier forecast tracks, well, I don't know if orange is a very good color with this orange land, but that's why you can change the colors. So the prior forecast track was a little bit to the left. The one before that, that shows up nicely. It's actually pretty similar, and then you can see the prior tracks prior to that. So the whole idea is when you're presenting a graphic, and you may not show a graphic with all of these on it. Let's say you're showing the last 3 forecasts, you can show a trend and the colors will tell you what that trend is rather than the same color as what we had before. Like I said, that default color might be better off if it was a little different. As long as we're among friends here, let's see. Maybe that's why I changed this to a light blue. And the prior forecast actually was the one that was hard to see. All right, let's try that again. Okay, forecast tracks. There we go. There's the prior, and there's the older. Yeah, I like those colors better. Maybe I'll make those the default colors. One of the user interface changes might seem minor, but if you right-click on a map, there's a new option that just says copy image to clipboard. Makes it easier to do. Makes a little noise. You can also do a Control-C. I don't know if you can hear that. I'm copying this, and then you can go paste it into your Word document or whatever a document you have. You also could have done that by coming up here and said copy to clipboard. So that just makes it a little bit easier without going to the menu. And by the way, you can do that on almost every graphic chart, whether it's an animation frame or any of these other maps, wind fields, wind bands. You should be able to do a quick copy and paste. Okay, there you go. For the advanced users, we're jumping a little bit here, but you also have the option under the shapefile export. And unfortunately, I'm using Global RM Pro right here. Let me Let me create a county report. So with a county report, we're going to come back to the shapefile. You can create the thematic, zoom in, and this is what we were talking about. You can display either the county name, the county win value, county name and value, county name and time, county name values and times. So if you want to pick the county values and times, it will just show you the wind speed and the time that that occurs. You can change that to show all three items. It gets a little crowded, but if you're zoomed in, it's not too bad. So Liberty County, 82 miles per hour, or 82 knots, Wednesday, October 10th. And we've really shrunk down the data. Since we're trying to fit all this in, we couldn't put the year, the wind, the unit of measure. It's in knots, your system. So, but that'll give a little additional piece of information for the end user. Let's show the method where you could animate with the range rings or decision arcs. In this case, we'll do the range rings because that's already defined by your base location, which I set as Tallahassee. So here's Michael. I'm going to select up here the range rings. And then you can, when you do animate, there's a new option. These are all the same. But now it's a little funny, but it's forecast. Animate the forecast with no track plot, meaning no current track. So what it'll then do is generate the animation without any other items in the background. Unfortunately, it's a little misleading if you're looking at the distances here, but that's because I didn't set the animation to plot with location distances, which that really is the default. Boy, that came right over Tallahassee. Okay, so let's stop that and let that just go on its own. All right, so it's kind of a funny option to come up here and say, so let's say we showed forecast track. If you came up here and said animate with no track plot, it keeps the forecast track, and so it's kind of riding up that railroad there. Can't say that was a heavily requested feature, but I wanted to do it for a couple particular users that were confused on how to do it, and this might confuse them a little more. We'll find out. Okay, now we're in the Hurrtrak Advanced system. Here's the export to shapefile option, and that's the 7-day precipitation forecast by county. There is a small bug there that I've discovered, so you probably don't want to play with that quite yet. I think you're going to find it's going to error out, but I did want to show you where that was. And then the other shapefile exports remain the same. So anyhow, as you can see, there's some work to be done. We've got a few fixes here. As we come up with some fixes, we'll send you a patch release. Hopefully it will be pretty harmless. And there should be enough information to get you going. The main focus being primarily on the 7-day forecast. If you were a professional user or a knowledgeable user and wanted to enter day 6 and day 7 information, how you would go about it. So that's it for this video. Please send me emails with any questions or reports of problems or anything really. Some of these things we ran into as we went through this video are relatively minor, but not minor if they make it into the production system. Thanks a lot.